Hey guys, it's me, Miss Checka, on my lunch break, and we're here for the next installment of Esperanza Rising, at our brand new / traditional 1 o'clock time. I've been having a very adventurous day today because I sit here at my desk and I teach my classes, but right past my computer, like right over here where you can't see, is a window. And in the window outside is this spider who is like committing all of these gruesome murders. And listen, I have learned more about spider like eating than I ever have wanted to know in my lifetime. I might post a video just so you can see. But like a little fly or insect will get in there, and then the spider's like so fast. Anyway, so it's Colton. Hi, Colton. How are you? All right. So we've got this book here, and when we left off, we were at a point of high tension because it was the strike that is maybe going to happen. And, Esperanza is like not quite sure what to do. She understands why the strikers are wanting better wages and more food and like better living conditions, because of course, like, doesn't everybody want that? But she also is very leery of like putting herself at risk, the money that she's earning at risk, her place to live. She's got to take care of her mom and her abuela. So let's continue on. We're on page 204. Esperanza had grown so accustomed to the strikers chanting while she packed asparagus that the moment it stopped, she looked up from her work as if something was wrong. Hortensia, do you hear that? What? The silence. There's no more yelling. The other women on the line looked at each other. They couldn't see the street from where they stood, so they moved to the other end of the shed, cautiously looking out to where the strikers usually stood. In the distance, a caravan of gray buses and police cars headed fast toward the shed, dust flying in their wakes. Immigration, said Josefina. It's a sweep. The picket signs lay on the ground, discarded, and like a mass of marbles that had already been hit, the strikers scattered into the fields and toward the boxcars on the tracks, anywhere they could hide. The buses and cars screeched to a stop, and immigration officials and police carrying clubs jumped out and ran after them. The women in the packing shed huddled together, protected by the company's guard. What about us? Said Esperanza, her eyes riveted on the guards who caught the strikers and shoved them back toward the buses. They would surely come into the shed next with so many Mexicans working there. Her fingers desperately clenched Hortensia's arms. I cannot leave, Mama. Hortensia heard the panic in her voice. No, Esperanza, they are not here for us. The growers need workers. That is why the company guards us. Several immigration officials, accompanied by police, began searching the platform, turning over boxes and dumping out field bins. Hortensia was right. They ignored the workers in their stained aprons, their hands still holding the green asparagus. Finding no strikers on the dock, they jumped back down and hurried to where a crowd was being loaded onto the buses. Americana! Americana! Yelled one woman. American! American! And she began to unfold some papers. One of the officials took the papers from her hands and tore them into pieces. Get on the bus, he ordered. What will they do with them? Asked Esperanza. They will take them to Los Angeles and put them on the train to El Paso, Texas, and then to Mexico, said Josefina. But some of them are citizens, said Esperanza. It doesn't matter. They are causing problems for the government. They are talking about forming a farm workers union, and the government and growers don't like that. But what about their families? How will they know? Word gets out. It is sad. They leave the buses parked at the station until late at night with those they captured on board. Families Families don't want to be separated from their loved ones and usually go with them. That is the idea. They call it a voluntary deportation, but it is not much of a choice. Two immigration officials positioned themselves in front of the shed. The others left on the buses. Esperanza and the other women watched the despondent faces in the windows disappear. Slowly, the women reassembled on the line and began to pack again. It had all lasted only a few minutes. What happens now? Asked Esperanza. La Migra will keep their eyes open for any strikers that might be back, said Josefina, nodding toward the two men stationed nearby. And we go back to work and feel thankful it is not us on that bus. Esperanza took a deep breath and went back to her spot. She was relieved, but still imagined the anguish of the strikers. Troubled thoughts stayed in her mind. Something seemed very wrong about sending people away from their own free country because they had spoken their minds. She noticed she needed more bands to wrap around the asparagus bundles and walked to the back of the dock to get them. Within a maze of crates, she searched for the thick rubber bands. Some of the boxes had been tossed over by the immigration officials, and as she bent down to set one straight, she sucked in her breath, startled by what was in front of her. Martha was huddled in a corner, holding her finger to her lips, her eyes begging for help. She whispered, "Please, Esperanza, don't tell. I can't get caught. I must take care of my mother." All right, I'm going to pause here and I'm going to do something. We've already done this, but I'm going to check it again. So the copyright of this book is the year 2000. This book was written and published 20 years ago. So 20 years ago, that's before 9/11, that's before the Black Lives Matter movement, that's before all of this stuff, right, about police brutality and the separations at the border and all of this stuff. So the reason that I'm looking this up and thinking about that is because this year, with all of this stuff on the news and all of this stuff on the streets and arguments back and forth, sometimes it feels like these are problems that are happening right now. Like they are happening right now. But what this book is showing us is like these are problems that have been happening for generations, like not just years, but decades, right? So let's look at what happened here. So we know that the strikers have not been acting like angels, right? They have been putting snakes in the stuff. They've been threatening people, so on and so forth. But the thing that they are asking is a right thing for them to be asking, which is, hey, you can't just pay people pennies. You know, people need a minimum wage. People need to have enough, a fair amount. That's what we call it. We call it fair wages, right? So if I'm working for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, then you got to pay me a fair amount and not take advantage of me. So they're asking for a fair thing. And instead of negotiating with them, instead of talking to them about like, okay, well, here are conditions for, for money. I mean, wages is the money that you're paid, or living conditions and all of this. They call the police and immigration. And what is very interesting here is something that has happened in real life. Like this is a fiction book, but this has happened in real life many, 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 many times. Is this about immigration? Is this about people being here illegally or undocumented or not? No, it's not. And we know that for two different reasons. One, because they don't take everybody. If it was about immigration, then they would have asked everybody for their papers. They didn't. They only take the people that they disagree with. Well, that's not a very fair way of doing things, is it? Right? Like if you disagree with somebody, then you just say, well, I'm going to deport you to another country rather than negotiate with you. But somebody else who has like the exact same situation, they get to stay here. Because then you start to have a society where like people can't speak up if something is wrong. People can't speak up if there's something that's immoral. because then they're going to be afraid that the government is going to come after them. And that's not right, right? The other thing is that there's a woman there who is a citizen. She's a citizen of the United States, and she's supposed to have rights. And they just tore up her papers in front of her. Again, this is a fiction story. It's a fictional person, a fictional book, but that has happened and does happen and did happen. That's not right. So unless everybody has rights, nobody really has rights. Isn't that true? So this is a very difficult thing for me to read, because I just think of so many people that are like experiencing this right now, that they are trying to speak up, and because they're trying to speak up, they're getting deported, or they're being separated from their families, or they get deported and then nobody knows what happened to them. So this book was written 20 years ago, and it's about the 1930s, but it's also something that helps us understand what is happening now. And like, this is why people want to change things for the better and make things more fair and more equitable. So yeah. All right, let's read on, because now Martha is there in the corner. And let me say hi to Colton. I'm doing really well. How is high school? All right. Martha was huddled in a corner. Oh no, we said that. Esperanza stood frozen for a moment, remembering Martha's meanness the first day in the truck. If she helped her and someone found out, Esperanza would be on the next bus herself. She couldn't risk it and started to say no, but then she thought about Martha and her mother holding hands and couldn't imagine them being separated from each other. Besides, they were both citizens. They had every right to be there, because we have known that detail. We have known that Martha was in fact born here, and she's never been to Mexico. She turned around and headed back to where the others were working. No one paid any attention to her. They were all busy talking about the sweep. She picked up a bundle of asparagus, several burlap sacks from a stack, and a dirty apron that someone had left on a hook. She quietly wandered back to Martha's hiding place. La migra is still out front, she said in a hushed voice. They will probably leave in an hour when the shed closes. She handed the apron and the asparagus to Martha. When you leave, put on the apron and carry the asparagus so you'll look like a worker, just in case anyone stops you. Gracias, whispered Martha. I'm sorry I misjudged you. Shh, said Esperanza, repositioning the crates and draping the burlap sacks across their tops so Martha couldn't be seen. Esperanza, called Josefina, where are you? We need the rubber bands. Esperanza stuck her head around the corner and saw Josefina with her hands on her hips, waiting. Coming, she called. She grabbed a bundle of bands and went back to work as if nothing had happened. Esperanza lay in bed that night and listened to the others in the front room talk about the sweeps and the deportations. They went to every major grower and put hundreds of workers on the buses, said Juan. Some say they did it to create more jobs for those coming from the east, said Josefina. We are lucky the company needs us right now. If they didn't, we'd be next. We have been loyal to the company, and the company will be loyal to us, said Alfonso. I'm just glad it's over, said Hortensia. It is not over, said Miguel. In time, they will be back, especially if they have families here. They will reorganize and they will be stronger. There will come a time when we will have to decide all over again whether to join them or not. Esperanza tried to go to sleep, but the day spun in her mind. She was glad she had kept working and thankful that her camp had voted not to strike, but she knew that under different circumstances, it could have been her on that bus. And then what would Mama have done? Her thoughts jumped back and forth. Some of those people did not deserve their fate today. How was it that the United States could send people to Mexico who had never even lived there? She couldn't stop thinking about Martha. It didn't matter if Esperanza agreed with her cause or not. No one. should have to be separated from her family. Had Martha made her way back to the strikers' farm without getting caught? Had she found her mother? For some reason, Esperanza had to know. The next morning, she begged Miguel to drive by the farm. The field was still surrounded by the chain link fence, but no one was protecting the entrance this time. All the evidence of people she had seen before was there, but not one person was to be seen. Laundry waved on the clothesline. Plates with rice and beans sat on crates and swarmed with busy flies. Shoes were lined up in front of tents, as if waiting for someone to step into them. The breeze picked up loose newspapers and floated them across the field. It was quiet and desolate, except for the goat still tied to the tree, bleeding for freedom. Immigration has been here too, said Miguel. He got out of the truck, walked over to the tree, and untied the goat. Esperanza looked out over the field that used to be crawling with people who thought they could change things, who were trying to get the attention of the growers and the government to make conditions better for themselves and for her too. More than anything, Esperanza hoped that Martha and her mother were together. But now there would be no way for her to find out. Maybe Martha's aunt would hear eventually. Something colorful caught her eye. Dangling from a tree branch were the remnants of the little donkey piñata that she had given the children, its tissue streamers fluttering in the breeze. It had been beaten with a stick, its insides torn out. So we've talked several times about symbols in this book. And last time we talked about how Esperanza has come such a long way, right? For her to give that man, food, and the kids, the little donkey that she bought, really, she is such a more mature and generous person than she was when she was on the train, and she was, didn't even want to show the little girl her doll. But what could that donkey symbolize? That donkey could symbolize kind of friendship and the generosity and sort of the spirit of the people living in those camps. And well, of course the donkey is beaten. It's a piñata. That's what you do with piñatas, is that you eat the candy inside and you beat it with the stick. But in this instance, the picture that the writer makes, that image of the little donkey piñata beaten up, and then together with the paragraph that said that, this was a community of people who tried to make a difference and then they lost. So it's almost like the little piñata represents, it's like a symbol of the people who lived in that camp and how they've been beaten. Like Miguel points out, they won't be beaten forever, right? But yeah, that's a very moving image. So we're going to stop right here for the book. I think this is a good stopping place. And then tomorrow we'll read another chapter. Let me put here in the chat box. Always love to hear from our old students. So guys, be good. Eat your fruits and vegetables. And I hope that we learn how to be generous and brave, that we learn to be generous like Esperanza, and that we learn to be brave like Martha. So I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.